It started like most weird things in my life, with Susan Liam standing over my desk, looking panicked and overly chipper. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. I had just returned from grabbing a sad granola bar from the break room when I saw her hovering, blonde hair a little frizzy from static, sweater slightly askew, holding a mug that read, "Santa's favorite marketer." She looked like a nervous elf, and unfortunately, I knew that look. Susan only ever looked like that when she was about to ask for something she didn't know how to say. "Hi," she said, too brightly. I sat slowly. "Hey, everything okay?" She didn't answer right away, just watched me unwrap the granola bar like it was a live grenade. Finally, she blurted, "Would you maybe want to make some extra money over the holidays?" I blinked. "Is this a pyramid scheme?" "No!" she hissed, then glanced around, lowering her voice. "No, it's not a scheme, it's more of a favor." I waited. Susan was a whirlwind in a cardigan, cheerful, soft-voiced, always bringing cupcakes for the office, and crying at pet adoption ads. We worked on different teams, but sat near each other. I liked her well enough, mostly because she never asked much of me. Until now. I told my parents I'm married. "Okay?" "To a woman." I paused mid-chew. "You're not married." "Exactly," she said, wincing. "It was a stupid lie to get them off my back last spring. They kept asking when I was going to settle down, and I panicked and said I already had. And now they want to meet your imaginary wife." She nodded. "And you want me to pretend to be her." Another nod. I leaned back, stunned. "Why me?" "Because you're calm and smart, and you don't talk too much, and you're not overly dramatic." "You mean I'm antisocial?" "No, I mean, you're the only person I trust not to turn this into a circus." I stared at her, trying to tell if this was a fever dream. "Susan, I'm not even out to my own family. I'm not gay." "You don't have to be," she whispered. "It's just for 4 days. I already told them your name. They think you're amazing. Please, Sienna. I'll pay for gas, food, and I'll throw in 500. I narrowed my eyes. "You named me?" I panicked. "I said I met you at a graphic design conference." I laughed in disbelief. "This is insane." "I know, but I'm desperate. You'd be doing me the biggest favor." I looked at her, the over-caffeinated guilt in her eyes, the way she twisted the fabric of her sleeve like a nervous kid. And maybe it was the fact that my own holiday plans had just fallen through, or that the idea of spending another Christmas binge-watching crime docs alone sounded especially bleak. But against all logic, I said, "Fine, but you're paying me up front." 2 days later, I was riding shotgun in her Subaru, watching snow accumulate on the road signs as we drove toward her hometown, Mapleford, a storybook kind of town outside Bend, Oregon. Susan had made a playlist titled Fake Wife Vibes and kept glancing at me as if I might jump out of the moving car. "Okay," she said, gripping the wheel tighter. "Let's go over the details. You're Sienna Reyes." "I'm aware." "You grew up in Seattle. We met at a design conference last March. We moved in together 6 months ago, and we got married at a botanical garden with succulents on the cake." I turned to her. "Succulents? My mom loves succulents." "Noted." We pulled into Mapleford just before sunset. The town looked like it had been designed by Hallmark. Glowing lights, wreaths on lampposts, fake snow on shop windows that didn't even need it. Her parents lived in a cozy blue house with a wraparound porch and a blinking inflatable reindeer on the lawn. "They're nice," she whispered as we got out. "They're just intense." The door burst open before we could knock. "There's my girl," her mother Rachel sang, wrapping Susan in a hug that nearly knocked off her beanie. Then she turned to me, and her face lit up like a tree. "You must be Sienna." "Oh, honey, you're beautiful." I barely had time to react before I was pulled into her arms too. She smelled like vanilla and pine. Inside, the house was a holiday fever dream. Twinkling lights, a fireplace, stockings with names embroidered on them, including a new one labeled Sienna. "Susan talked about you all year," Rachel said, guiding us into the living room where her husband Greg was stoking the fire. "She's smitten." I glanced at Susan, who gave me a tight smile that said, "Please don't run." That night, after a dinner of ham and Rachel's famous garlic potatoes, I found myself in Susan's childhood bedroom, which still had glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. She sat cross-legged on the bed while I brushed my teeth in the hallway bathroom. When I returned, she looked up. "Thank you for doing this." I shrugged. "I've faked worse things for less money." She laughed. "Still, you didn't have to. I know it's awkward." I hesitated. "They're really sweet. And I get why you lied." Her eyes softened. "You do?" I nodded. "It's hard when people expect you to have your life figured out. Sometimes it's easier to pretend you do." We were quiet for a moment. Outside the window, snow was beginning to fall again, coating the yard in fresh powder. "I think we pulled it off," she said eventually. "You were very convincing." She grinned. "So were you. Maybe too convincing. My mom already asked if we're planning kids." I groaned. "Please tell her we're a child-free power couple." She laughed again, and for the first time since I'd agreed to this madness, I felt something shift. A thread of warmth, maybe, or possibility. I couldn't tell. As I turned off the light and crawled into the guest bed beside her, I reminded myself, this was just pretend. But that didn't explain why my heart was suddenly beating faster than it should. The second day felt different. Not because anything had gone wrong. In fact, everything was going weirdly well. Too well. Rachel insisted we sleep in and made pancakes shaped like snowmen. Greg roped me into helping him shovel snow from the walkway, while he told me how Susan used to build igloos in the backyard as a kid. And Susan, well, she kept smiling at me in this quiet, knowing way, like we were sharing a secret no one else could decode, which, technically, we were. But it didn't feel like a con. It felt comfortable, and I didn't know what to do with that. In the evening, we all gathered around the living room fireplace for a family game night. Rachel poured spiked cider. Susan's aunt and cousin dropped by. Everyone treated me like I belonged. No questions, no suspicions. Just warmth and sugar cookies and too much laughter. "Truth or dare, Sienna?" Rachel said, her cheeks rosy from cider. I hesitated. "Truth." She leaned in like she was about to spill gossip. "When did you realize Susan was the one?" I blinked. "Oh, Susan jumped in. "She's going to say it was when I beat her at karaoke. She loves losing to me." "That's a lie," I said, relieved. "I let you win." The table laughed. Susan beamed. And for the first time I realized, I liked making her smile. That night, we collapsed into bed after the last guest left. The string lights around the window glowed faintly, casting a warm hue over the room. I changed into my flannel sleep shirt, the one with faded moons on it, and sat on the edge of the mattress while Susan scrolled her phone. "My cousin thinks we're goals," she said, still looking at the screen. "She texted me during dinner." I snorted. "She doesn't know I secretly want to strangle you for putting me in this situation. Please, you love this." I didn't answer. Susan set the phone aside and turned to face me. "You've been amazing, by the way. My mom adores you." "She keeps offering to show me baby pictures of you in duck pajamas." Susan groaned, flopping back on the bed. "Kill me." I laughed, and the sound surprised me. When was the last time I'd laughed like that with someone? The room fell quiet. The soft sound of wind outside. The hum of the heating vent. Susan spoke again, her voice softer now. Can I ask you something kind of weird? I looked over. Sure. Do you ever feel like you're playing a role in your own life? Like, you're saying the right lines and hitting your cues, but it's not you? I didn't answer right away. Because yes, I did. I had felt that way for years. In meetings, in friend groups, even at family dinners back home. Like I was always performing someone easier to understand. I get that, I said finally. More than I want to admit. She nodded. It's strange, isn't it? That pretending with you feels more real than most things I do. I looked at her then. Susan, so bright and put together on the outside, was full of shadows underneath. Not dark ones, just unspoken ones. I recognized them. I had the same ones. Without thinking, I shifted closer. It doesn't feel fake to me either. Her eyes met mine. Then what does it feel like? I swallowed. My heart thudded in my chest, sharp and insistent. Like maybe I don't want this to end on Monday. She didn't say anything. Instead, she leaned forward, so close I could feel her breath on my cheek. And then, softly like asking permission, she kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't crash through me like a tidal wave. It was slow, hesitant, a question more than a declaration. But something inside me still answered yes. When we pulled apart, I couldn't breathe. That was, she started. Unexpected? I offered. She smiled, lips pink and slightly parted. Yeah. I looked down at my hands, the nerves rushing back. Was it a mistake? She shook her head. No, but I don't know what it means. Neither did I. So we didn't define it. We just let it be. The next day was Christmas Eve. The house was buzzing with last-minute prep for dinner. Rachel pulled out the fancy dishes. Greg lit every candle in the house. Cousins arrived with casseroles. An uncle brought a bottle of wine and immediately spilled half of it on the tablecloth. Through it all, Susan and I played our parts. The loving couple, the in-sync pair. But something was different now. Our fingers brushed more often. We exchanged glances that lasted longer than they should. When she laughed, I watched her mouth instead of the punchline. In the kitchen, we frosted sugar cookies side by side, while Rachel told us stories about Susan's disastrous first attempts at baking. She once used salt instead of sugar in a birthday cake, Rachel said, laughing. We pretended it was edible. She still does that, I said automatically. Susan elbowed me. Slander. Rachel shook her head, still smiling. You two are perfect for each other. My hand slipped, icing smearing across the counter. I stared at it like it might give me a script for how to respond. Perfect. The words stuck to me like glue and wouldn't let go. That night, after the dishes were done and everyone had retreated to the living room, I stood alone in the hallway, staring at the snow falling outside. Susan appeared beside me. She said nothing at first, just handed me a mug of hot cider and leaned against the wall. Do you think we're doing the right thing? I asked quietly. She looked at me. You mean lying? I nodded. I don't know, she said, but I know it doesn't feel like a lie when I'm with you. The words settled between us, quiet and careful. Then what is it? She shrugged. Maybe the start of something I wasn't expecting. My chest tightened. I looked down into my cup and then back at her. I didn't expect you either, I admitted. Susan smiled. Not her usual sunny grin. Something softer, warmer. And once again, I kissed her. Not because anyone was watching, but because I wanted to. We didn't talk about the second kiss, or the way she lingered beside me afterward, like she was afraid stepping back might undo something we'd built by accident. Christmas morning was chaotic and loud. Greg wore a Santa hat and passed out gifts in his plaid pajamas. Rachel made cinnamon rolls and insisted we eat them before opening anything. I watched Susan with her family, the way she lit up when her dad gave her a ridiculous handmade key holder, the way her mom hugged her for no reason at all. And I felt something shift in my chest. Belonging. It wasn't my home. It wasn't my family. But they had let me in like I was, without question. And Susan had too, which made what came next harder. We drove back to Portland the next day in near silence. The roads slushy with melted snow. The car was full of leftover cookies and handmade ornaments Rachel had insisted we take. I stared out the window most of the way, wondering what would happen now that the pretending was over. "Hey," Susan said as we neared the city limits. "Are we okay?" I turned toward her, searching for what she was really asking. "Yeah," I said, even though I wasn't sure what okay meant anymore. She nodded, but her fingers tightened on the wheel like she didn't quite believe me. Back at my apartment, she helped me carry up my things. The suitcase, the tin of cookies, the stocking with my name on it. We stood awkwardly in the doorway, like two people who'd forgotten how to say goodbye. "Well," I said, gripping the edge of the door, "thanks for the bizarre adventure." Susan smiled faintly. "Thank you for saving my life." Dramatic. But true. I hesitated. I wanted to ask her in. I wanted her to stay. But I didn't know what we were now, or what she wanted us to be. So I said nothing. She lingered for a moment, then gave me a quick, uncertain hug. "I'll see you at work." And then she was gone. The days that followed were dull in comparison. The office was still half empty, the fluorescent lights still too bright. Susan and I were polite, friendly even. But something hung between us, unspoken, sticky, unshakable. We still exchanged glances. We still laughed at the same dumb jokes. But the space between us felt crowded with questions. Were we just coworkers again? Friends? A half-formed maybe? I didn't know, and it started to gnaw at me. Until one night, about a week later, I came home to find Susan sitting on the steps outside my building, a paper cup of coffee in one hand, and a nervous look in her eyes. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, standing as I approached. "I've been thinking about everything, and I don't want to go back to pretending we're nothing." I froze. My keys dug into my palm. She stepped closer. "I know this started as a lie, but it stopped feeling like one. You know that, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, I know." She searched my face. "So what do we do?" I looked at her and saw all of it, the fear, the hope, the softness in her that only showed when she stopped trying to be what everyone wanted her to be. I took a breath. "Come inside." We sat on my couch, legs curled beneath us, 2 mugs of tea between us that neither of us touched. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of what?" "Of wanting something that isn't real. Of making this up in my head." "It's not just you," I said quietly. She looked at me. "I'm scared too," I continued. "But I think about that kiss, about your family, about us baking cookies in the kitchen, and you elbowing me during charades. And it didn't feel fake. It felt easy, like something I didn't know I'd been missing." Susan reached out, hesitated, then took my hand. "I don't want to stop," she whispered. "Whatever this is, I want more of it, even if we have to figure it out slowly." I squeezed her hand. "No more pretending?" "No more pretending," she promised. And that was how it started. Again, but for real this time. The weeks that followed were quieter. There were no fireworks or dramatic speeches, just small things. A hand brushing mine at the grocery store. A shared look over coffee. A text that made me smile in the middle of a workday. We started spending real time together, not fake wife time. I learned that Susan hated olives, but loved olive oil. That she doodled stick figures in her planner when she was anxious. that she snorted when she laughed too hard. She learned that I hummed when I was deep in thought, that I never finished a cup of tea, that I wasn't as guarded as I pretended to be. We didn't rush, we didn't define it right away, but we were moving forward. Whatever forward meant for two women who started off as a lie. One Sunday, about a month after Christmas, we were walking through the park just before sunset. The sky was turning orange, and the air smelled like wet earth and cinnamon from a nearby vendor cart. She stopped and tugged my hand gently. "What?" I asked. Susan looked at me, eyes steady. "Are you still scared?" "Terrified," I said. She smiled. "Me too." And then, with no audience, no script, she leaned in and kissed me like she meant it. This time, it wasn't a question. It was an answer.